Good evening, students. Again, apologies. I'm having some health issues and was not able to make the office hours on Tuesday. I will have office hours today, though, if you have additional questions. And we can also schedule some one-on-one time off cycle of that if some students need some additional help. But for this week, I just wanted to throw a couple of additional things out there for you. The introduction video should explain this to you rather well. Some students have had trouble with the scripts, so and the files. So I've also posted those to the help desk forum. So you'll find those attached to the thread in the help desk forum as well. Out of these, I wanted to kind of stress, two pieces. First of all, for the question related to scanning through a text file and determine word frequencies, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. There's a way that you could write it yourself to do that, and probably in about 10 statements you could get it to do this. There's also a library that's out there called Quantita. So I'll leave this link in the description too as well, but quantita.io, it's got a whole system that's out there, and it gives you a nice little walkthrough of how do you install this. You can install the package. Quantita makes text analytics extremely easy for you. So rather than having to manually write those functions, you could do this in Quantita very easily. To show you an example of that, here is the solution, an alternate method. Here's a way which you could do that solution for Quantita, and it just uses the sample text. It'll read the sample text into a data frame, turn that into a corpus using the corpus command, doing a summary of the corpus, tokenizing the words, producing a frequency matrix, and then reducing out the top features on top of it. So this is not the complete solution for the problem, but this gets you started in that direction. If you'd like to write one out yourself, similar to like what you've seen here, you can do that, or you can use Quantita. Both will get you full points if executed correctly. Now, the second piece that some students have some trouble with are linear regressions. This is the first time that you're being asked to do a linear regression. We're going to do this quite frequently inside of the course. So to kind of show you an example of that, first of all, I'm going to load the lattice library. Then the next thing I'm going to do is do a plot. I'm going to sort of run a simple scatter plot. And so here I'm going to look at the iris data set. Now, if you've read the instructions, you are not to use the iris data set. So if you use the iris data set, then that would tell me that you didn't read the instructions, and you will not get credit for the question if you submit it using the iris data set. So this one here is going to compare petal length to petal width. And so let's do a quick scatter plot. We can see right here, just looking visually, you can see a linear relationship, or what appears to be a linear relationship. Now, if I wanted to break that down by species, I can also do that too. This is using that pipe symbol, so I'm doing length by width, but I'm going to pipe it, so I'm going to group it on the species, and you're going to see different kinds of different pieces of that too as well. So not only overall do I see that there's a good linear relationship, but then as I look at individual species, I can see that one is towards the top, one is towards the bottom, and one is towards the middle. So that's another piece of information which is kind of telling me here. Now I'm just looking to do the simple scatter plot, just do the simple regression. So this is maybe an additional step to go down, but not necessarily required for this exercise. Now, in order to do a linear regression, you use the LM command. And so I'm going to compare that length to width, and I'm going to use the data set using iris. Storing the values in simple iris regression. I'm then going to plot that. I'm going to turn around and run a line. So if you do this overlay line, this AB line, and do simple regression, it's going to overlay the line. And then I want to run the summary. And so down here, you can see the summary. So in addition to actually executing the commands, in your comments, you should tell me what that means. So as I'm looking at this, is it a strong correlation? Is it weak? Is it good? Is it positive? Is it negative? What? So interpret the results that you see down here, not just run the command. Now, if I look at a poor linear relationship, that was a good linear relationship. If I look at a poor linear relationship, for example, You can see here, I don't see it visually, I just don't see a linear relationship in that. And so then if I run that same process, it still produces a linear regression line, but by looking at the details down here, it's going to tell me. So again, you'll want to tell the R squared, the adjusted R squared, the F stat, the P value, those individual elements. How do you know that the first one that we ran was a good regression, the second one was a poor regression? So whatever your regression that you came up with, if you come up with a good one or a poor one, you got to tell me why it's good, why it's poor. Is it good? Is it poor? So that's one additional piece here that I'm going to be looking for when I'm grading this particular section of it. That's the two main pieces that students have a little bit of trouble with. Again, this is a very straightforward process. It's not using any of the more advanced modeling techniques. So just do a quick, simple linear regression. Tell me what the results of the linear regression. Let's see a graph of it. Excuse me. Now, one additional thing I'm going to start doing in the future weeks from this point forward is I'm going to start providing you with notebooks. So one of the features inside of R Studio is the ability to create these R notebooks. So in order to create one, let me show you that process. You go up here, File, you go New File, and then you select R Notebook. Now when you do this, it's going to create a generic one here, and this is in R Markdown language. Excuse me, Markdown language. But this includes both individual pieces of code, so like here is a piece of R code, as well as just raw text that you can put into it. So what this is used for is producing your results. So if you've worked with Jupyter Notebooks in Python, for instance, this is very similar to doing a Jupyter Notebook in Python. But by doing this, it gives you the basic framework. And from this framework, then you can go ahead and start putting in your R code. So let's say I wanted to put in my linear regression that we just went through. So now by putting that in here, and I could type in any kind of text to explain it, I could put text explaining it down here. Then what we can do is if we choose Run, and we choose Run All, it'll actually run it, but within your notebook itself, it'll actually have the information. So future, what we're going to start doing is we're going to start working with notebooks. I'm going to be providing you with a notebook that'll show you not only the code that I'm using, but also kind of the results and some of the commentary that goes along with it. So this is kind of from this point forward, we'll start using notebooks, or you'll have those provided to you. Now, you don't have to turn in a notebook yourself. Actually, just the R script is fine for me for grading purposes. But I wanted you to be aware of this particular capability because this, again, is something quite common. Now also, this is defaults to the preview, the HTML notebook, but you can also use knitter. So this is where you can knit it to HTML, you can knit it to PDF, and you can knit it to Word. Now you do have to have some additional libraries installed in order to do that. So if you try to run the PDF and you don't have the PDF installed, for instance, you're going to get a warning message on that. But the end result is that you could take this exact same thing you're seeing here, and it'll save it off automatically to a Word document, a PDF, or even an HTML page that could be published. So as we continue in the course, we'll get into notebooks a little bit more, but I wanted to kind of introduce you to it. So next week when you get your first notebook, I'll provide that in PDF form to you, that you'll know exactly what I did in order to get to that stage. So if you have any questions about week 3, let me go ahead and save it. Yes. Okay, if you have any questions about week 3, please just hit me up. At this point, I'm still having some students submitting their week 2s, so I can't walk you through the solution for week 2 at this point. But if you have questions and you come to office hours and you've turned in your week 2, I'd be happy to field those questions as well. So again, apologies for some of the delays. Feeling a little bit better today. So we'll have our office hours, and if you need some additional sessions, I'm happy to set those up too as well. Otherwise, reach out to me on the forums, reach out to me in email if you have any questions. Thank you and have a good one.